Hey, my name's Izzy. This is Rolling Virtual Cards coming at you live for another Magic the Gathering deck build. Continuing the finishing of the month of Atraxa, which was supposed to be done back in February, but stuff caught up to me and I had to finish up other things in other lives. This time we are doing Atraxa Incubator. The Incubate effect is fantastic. We'll go over that once we get to the cards. But Atraxa herself, going over her quickly, Atraxa Praetor's Voice is a green, a white, a blue, and a black for a 4/4 Angel Horror with Flying, Vigilance, Deathless, Lifelink, and at the beginning of your instant you proliferate. Proliferating means you choose any permanents or players and then put another counter on it of each counter that's on it. She's great. She keeps you life up. She keeps you protected, makes people not want to attack you. Oh, I could swing. It'll just kill my guy. Even if it's a big dude, they don't want to lose it. And even if you lose your Atraxa, you can recast it for 6. And you just gain 4 life anyway. So, very good card. Incubator works so well with it. It's one of the newer mechanics from one of the Phyrexian sets. So without further ado, we'll go into the card by card. First off, the +1/+1 counter cards, okay? Incubator is in and out of itself a +1/+1 counter mechanic. So there's a lot of these, and Atraxa really helps push all of that, okay? Hardened Scales double or puts an additional 1/1 counter on it. So when you proliferate or when the card says put a 1/1 counter on it, you get a 2. If it says 4, you get 5, okay? Icor Drinker is a black for a 1/1 Phyrexian Vampire with lifelink. For black, you can exile Icor Drinker from your graveyard and incubate 2. So here's how incubation works. We'll go over that with the token. This is Incubator. So you make this token. It is a token artifact incubator with play 2, transform it, and it becomes a 0/0 token artifact creature Phyrexian. So it comes in with 2 1/1 count. If it says incubate 2, it means you make 1 incubator with 2 1/1 counters on it. So then when you pay 2 and transform it, it becomes a 2/2. If it says incubate 2 2 times, it means you get 2 incubations with 2 counters on it. So lots of ways to do that. And then the incubations sitting here as little artifacts give you 2 upsides. The first upside is destroy all creatures. They'll stay alive, and then the next turn you can transform them all and kind of get out and fighting them, because transforming them, I believe they can attack the turn they transform. I believe, because you're not exiling them. I'd have to double check that though. And if you're not, board wiping for creatures and then flipping all of them on your turn can be useful. So that's incubation. So in this case, you would exile it from your graveyard for black, and then incubate 2, so make an incubator token with 2 1/1 counters on it. Progenitor Exarch is 2x and a white for a 1/2 Phyrexian Cat Cleric. When it enters the battlefield, you incubate 3 X times. In other words, you make X tokens, incubation tokens with 3 1/1 counters. So what that means is if you cast this guy for 7, where X, so you pay 1 white and 6 generic, X is going to be 3, and you'd make 3 incubation tokens with 3 1/1 counters on. And then you can tap it to transform target incubator token you control. So that helps you get around the having to pay 2. Assimilate Essence is 1 and a white for 1 and a blue for an instant. Counter target creature or battle spell unless its controller pays 4 generic. If they do, you incubate 2. Okay. Another great way to incubate. Benevolent Hydra is just going to give you come in with X 1/1 counters on it, and if 1 or more counters would be put on another creature, you put that many +1, just like Hardened Scales. And you can tap it to remove a counter from him and put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. So with Benevolent, you'd be putting 2 1/1 counters on them. Conclave Mentor is the same thing. If you'd put 1 more counters, you put an additional 1. And then if it dies, you gain life equal to its power, protecting you from like board wipes if you can get it bigger. Gift of Completion, 1 in a black, and it enters the battlefield, you incubate 3 times. Or you incubate 3. And when a Phyrexian you control dies, you surveil 1, giving you good card selection. Norin's Inquisitor is 1 in a black, 1 in a white for 1/1. And it enters the battlefield, you incubate 2. And then whenever a permanent you control transforms into a Phyrexian, you put a 1/1 counter on it. So your artifacts transform, your incubations transform, and then they get an additional 1/1 counter on it. Ozolith is doing the same thing as your other guys. It's going to put an additional 1/1 counter, but then for 1 in the green, you can tap it and put a 1/1 counter on target artifact or creature control. And you can also cycle it for 2 if you don't need it. I don't think I'd ever cycle this card in this deck, unless I didn't have the lands. Sunder the Gateway is 1 and a white for a sorcery. Destroy target non-token artifact or enchantment opponent control, and then incubate 2. Or incubate 2, then transform an incubation token you control. So it's either removal, which is very useful, or you can incubate and then flip your big guy for free. Blighted Bargaining is 2 and a green for an enchant land. It enters, you incubate 2. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional mana of any colors. This just makes you tap for double. Or for an additional mana. Bloated Processors, 2 and a black for a 3/2. Sacrifice a Phyrexian, put a 1/1 counter on it, and then when it dies, incubate X or X its power. So if it's if you sacked 2 creatures or 1 creature to put a 1/1 counter on, and it's getting bigger with Atraxa, and its power is like 6, you get an Incubator token with 6 counters on it. Branch of Evolution, if 1 or more counters would be on a creature, twice that many. So this would be like, instead of 2 counters, you get 4. So unlike the other ones that are just putting an additional 1, this one doubles it. Elvis, Vat Keeper, 1 black green for a 3/3 Phyrexian elf. It enters, you incubate 2, and then for 5 you can transform target incubate token you control and double the number of 1/1 counters on it. So if it's got 4 1/1 counters, it's 8. Now you got an 8/8. Really good there. And you can do that on your opponent's instep, which is cool. Excise the Imperfect is 1 and 2 white for an instant. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller incubates X or X its mana value. So the cool thing about this is, yeah, you give your opponent something for 3, you can just do a nice removal. Or you can do this on one of your bigger mana valued things and get a pretty big exile thing. Especially if someone goes, I'm going to destroy your creature, you can just go, instead, I'm just going to exile it and target my Atraxa. Cool, I'll just excise it, make you waste your thing, and then I'll get this nice 4/4 incubated token. Kami, an additional 1/1, and then tapping it, you can add X mana of any color where X is its power. Phyrexian Awakening, when it enters the battlefield, you get to incubate 4. And then Phyrexians you control have Vigilance. Very nice. Having them have Vigilance is great protection, and then the tokens become Phyrexians. Brimez, the Blight of Orescus, is a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, or whenever you cast a Phyrexian creature or an artifact creature spell, you incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value. So if you cast an artifact that's 4, you get a incubator with 4. If you cast something with 5, you get a 5. If you cast a Phyrexian that's 4, you get a 4, which is kind of cool. Very useful. It is the Incubator deck, but you don't get a lot of the green stuff that helps you double up the 1/1 counters, so there's a reason why instead of this card, you could run Atraxa. And then at the beginning of each instep, if a Phyrexian died and you control this turn, proliferate, which is so strong. Oh, you killed my Atraxa or one of my other creatures, or you blocked my Incubator egg. Make everything bigger. Converter Beast, 3 and a blue-green for 0/1. It enters the battlefield, incubate 5, which is strong. Corpse Jax puts an additional 1/1 counter. Elish Norn, one of the strongest Incubator cards. So whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, they lose 2 life unless they pay an additional 1, so great protection. And as long as you can pay 2 and a white and sacrifice the other creature, you can exile it and bring it back as the Arrogant Etchings. For the first stage, or for the first step, you incubate 2 5 times, then transform all incubation tokens you control. So not only do you get 5 2/2s, you also go, oh, here's all my other incubation tokens, I get a lot more. Then at 2, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain double strike until end of turn. So all your guys you just transformed are now slightly bigger, especially since the Atraxa made them bigger on the rotation, and they all have double strike. So that's usually going to just win you the game. And if it doesn't, you get to pay at 3, destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, lands, and Phyrexians. Exile the Arrogant Etchings, then return it to the battlefield as Elish Norn again. So this, and then you can just do it again. Make more. Flip it. Very hard to kill. such a strong commander on in its own right. And in this deck, you don't kill your Atraxa. So your Atraxa just gets to sit there and go, heh, I'm just going to keep beating the crap out of everyone. Yeah, and if you don't win with that too, you just blow the field up and try again. So, very, very arrogant. Gisling Dawn is 2 and 2 blue, green for a sorcery. Incubate X twice, where X is the number of lands you control. So, X twice, where X is the number of lands you control. So, incubating X twice means if you have 5 lands, you get to make 2 incubation tokens with 5 counters on them. Sculptured Perfections, 2 a white and a black for an enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, you get to incubate 2. And then for actions you control, get +1/+1, which is great on its own. Just a nice anthem. Tiller of Flesh is 3 and a white for a 2/4 Phyrexian Knight, and when you cast a spell that targets one or more permanents, incubate 2. So if you start interacting with your opponents, you're going to keep incubating 2, which is pretty good. Corruption of Tashi is 4 and a blue for an enchantment. It enters the battlefield, you incubate 4. And then when a permanent you control transforms, or a permanent enters the battlefield under control transform, you may draw a card. Do this once each turn. So when you transform, if you have this guy out, you can go 2 on my turn to transform this token, draw a card. And then on their turn, draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. And then you got your guys all flipped to swing out next turn, and you drew a bunch of cards. Essence of Orthodox, 3 and 2 white for a 3/3 Phyrexian with flying, and when it or another Phyrexian enters the battlefield, incubate twice. Just a great way to keep incubating. Gisela, Herald of Perdition, is 3 black, blue, green for a 3/5 Phyrexian zombie elf. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose 1. Incubate twice. Transform all incubation tokens you control, or Phyrexian you control, gain first strike and death touch another turn. I'm gonna double. Well, according to Reddit, yes, they can attack the turn they get flipped. So the last one's Phyrexian you control, gain first strike and death touch until their turn. So the idea here, in a very slow case, like if this was your commander, hits the field, first upkeep, boom, incubate twice. 2 twice. So you get 2 incubation tokens with 2 1/1 counters on them. Then next turn, transform them. Cool, now they are 2 Phyrexians that can attack. The next turn, they now have first strike and death touch, including her. She gets first strike and death touch. But in this deck, oh look, I have a bunch of, I don't have a lot of incubations because they board wiped. Let me get Giselle out and just start rebuilding, getting all my incubations up. Using Atraxa next turn to keep buffing them. Oh look, I'm going to flip them all. Oh look, not all of my Phyrexians are really big. Or if you have your army, you can drop this card and give them all first strike and death touch and just be like. So. Infected Defector, 4 and a white for a 4/3 Phyrexian Knight. Incubate 3. When it dies, you incubate 3, which is fine. You know, just a nice 4/3. Oh, you killed it? Cool, incubate. Again, great way. Oh, you board wipe? Cool, I get a 3/3. Primal Vigor, not everyone's cup of tea. It does help your opponents if they're running tokens or 1/1 counters, but this gives you twice the amount of tokens and twice the number 1/1 counters, but it's for everyone. So if you find that this keeps biting you in the butt, or find that you keep not playing it because your opponents, you run against too many people who are at least one of your 3 opponents are running a token deck or a 1/1 counter deck like every time, then drop it, put another card in it. Probably a board wipe. Sunfall, 3 and 2 white for a sorcery. Exile all creatures. Then incubate X, where X is the number of creatures exiled this way. This is fantastic. Great board wipe and a great way to just win. Incubate X, where X is the number of creatures exiled. So if you exile 10 creatures, everyone's, or there's 3 creatures, 12. You get a 12 incubation token, flip it next turn, scary. Tangled Skylines, 4 and a green with enchantment, and into the battlefield, you gain 5 life and incubate 5, and then Phyrexians you control have reach, giving you a great way to just block stuff. You can actually transform your 5/5 incubator too, and then it has reach and you can block their flyer, which is actually pretty cool. Blight Titans, 4 and 2 black for a 6/6 Phyrexian giant with death touch. And then when it hits the battlefield or attacks, mill 2 cards, then incubate X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So if you got 5, 6 creatures in your graveyard, you're going to be getting some nice creatures on ETB and attack. And then Injector Crocodile, 4 and 2 black for a 5/5 Phyrexian Crocodile. When it dies, incubate 5. And Swamp Cycle for 2. So if you really need that swamp, ditch this card. Otherwise, not bad. Get yourself an incubator. Lots of ETBs. Most of them are incubations because incubating is an ETB effect. Eternal Witness is a great way to just get something back to your hand. Like, oh, they killed my Essence Orthodox and I really need it because it's a good card. Get it back. Or I need my I need some draw. Let's get my Corruption of Taoish there. Corruption of Taoish. So everything else there was just a duplicate. Chrome Host Seed Shark. Oh, I forgot to put this. Give me a second. It's been fixed. So this is a 2/1 for 2/4 with flying. And when you cast a non-creature spell, you incubate X, where X is the spell's mana value. So as long as you're casting non-creature spells, you're going to incubate a lot. And we went over those two. Ramp. My ramp, simple package. Birds taps for any color. Wayfarer grabs me a basic land. Arcane taps for any color. Farseek grabs me a non-forest. Fellwar Stone taps for any color most of the time. Rampant Growth grabs me a basic land. Steve grabs me a basic land. Bite Bergen. Technically, you're enchanting a land, and that taps for an extra one, which is pretty cool. Of any color that it could... Oh, of any color, which is pretty cool. Chromatic Lantern taps for any color and allows your lands to tap for any color. Commander Sphere can be tapped for any color, and you get to sacrifice a draw card, which means you can tap it for a mana and then sack it to grab a land, to draw a card. Cultivate and Kodama's Reach both grab 2 basic lands, one at the field, one into your hand. Caught Me of the Whispered Hopes taps for a lot of mana if its power is bigger, otherwise it's just tapping for 1. And Smothering Tithe is pretty cool because you get to just get a lot of stuff. If it's too expensive, either proxy or swap it out, because Smothering Tithe is a $13 card. But it gives you treasure tokens every time your opponent draws a card, unless they pay 2 generic. We got the 1 recursion in there. Here's your lands. We're not playing anything interesting in the lands. 2 accident life gains. Atraxa has the accident life games. Otherwise, I tend to run more. 1 Anthem. Counters. Okay, so counters are not in the 1/1 counter things because they do everything. Winding Constrictor. If 1 or more counters we place on a permanent, you get that plus an additional 1, and if you would get 1 or more counters, you get an additional 1. This is a double-sided sword. If someone's running toxic or poison counters, you do get 2, which is dangerous. On the other hand, it doubles all the counters, which is just really helpful here. Same with Lazelve. If you would put 1 or more counters on a creature or planeswalker you control, put an additional 1. Peer, put an additional 1. Brims is any counters because it proliferates. Takuthul does any counters because it proliferates. It also has good protection and flying. Double Seasoning is double tokens and double counters. So instead of 2 going to 3, 2 goes to 4. But this is only for you. And again, it's expensive, so I would proxy it if I were you. And Vorinclex Monstrous Rider is just a walking double seasoning. It has the 6/6 with trample and haste. And if you would put 1 more counters on a permanent player, twice that many counters get put on them. And then if an opponent would put 1 or more counters on a permanent player, half that many. So if they go to 1, it rounds down to 0. Elish Norn is just massive amounts of damage, which is why it's in the damage. Draw. I don't have a lot of draw in this deck, and that is one of the downsides to this deck. I would probably look into maybe running more draw if you notice it as a problem. If you're not noticing it as a problem, then don't worry about it. 2 evasions. He's got evasion because of Forest Walk, and he's got evasion because of flying. He's also, if you would make a token, would be created under your control, you make a squirrel, and then you can sacrifice X squirrels, and target creature gets plus X, minus X. So you can just start removing people by sacking squirrels, and then all the incubation tokens you're making, you make more. You make squirrels. We went over the incubations because they're all on the same page, because they're also all 1/1 counter things, so you get them. Interaction. Path to Exile and Swords are both a white to exile a creature. Swords gives them life, Path gives them a land. Arcane and Counterspell are both counterspells. Counter just counters it. Arcane makes it so that they draw 2 cards at the next upkeep and you draw 1. We went over Assimilation Essence. Heroic Intervention gives all your creatures hexproof and indestructible. All your permanents, actually. Sideway Gateway we explained. Chatterfing we explained. Yeah, we explained the other guys. And this is the 1 mill card we have. Protection. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots both protect your commander or any other card you want to. Atraxa. It has Ward. And then it also has a token thing. So if 1 or more tokens will be created under your control, twice that many of tokens. So with the Incubation, you make 2 of them. With the same 1/1 counters. 3 sack outlets, all of which we went over. Yeah. We went over these guys. Tokens. So all your incubation tokens are also tokens, but we also have other things. So anointed procession doubles the tokens. So if you would incubate once, you get 2 of them, and it does come with the 1/1 counters because you're making the exact same thing with the same counters. Mondrake does the same thing, but while walking, and then you can sacrifice 2 artifacts or creatures and give an indestructible counter onto it. And then Parallel Lives is the same thing as Anointed Possessions, but just green. And then Double Seizing, we went over that for tokens, and the rest are all we went over. Tribal, we went over all the tribal here. It's all Phyrexian tribal stuff. We went over the 2 wipes we have, and we went over the tokens. So, yeah. Overall, why would you want to play this interactive, interesting, unique deck? Because it's unique. We're never getting Incubate again for the most part. I mean, okay, Incubate is such an interesting thing. I could see us getting Incubate again in the future. Kind of like how we got armies again, but instead of Phyrexians, we're on take Bloomhaven, right? Bloomhaven, Incubate, eggs. It's a land of creatures. Maybe like the reptile villains in the game, which I'm pretty sure will be in the game. Like reptiles eat the mice and stuff. So like the snakes and the lizards or whatever, the serpents, they all incubate little eggs, and the eggs get to pop out, and they're dangerous and stuff. You could do an Incubate with that set, and just go, oh yeah, it's instead of it being a scroll down forever. Here we go. Instead of them being a token artifact, they would still be token artifact incubator, but when they flip, instead of being Phyrexian or an artifact, they'd be like token creature snake, right? You could do something like that because snakes lay eggs, so that could be like an interesting idea, right? Doing something like that could be an interesting. You still keep it with the bad guys of the world, I guess, actual bad guys of the world, and then you could keep doing incubator decks. Oh yeah, I have more ways to incubate stuff and more 1/1 counter stuff, and then like, okay, cool, you can't really do the Phyrexian thing in that case, but you could still just do incubator things. So, and you can make it more about transform, and that'd be kind of interesting. In my opinion, you could bring it back. I think it's a fantastic mechanic, very unique mechanic. Look at other ways to build it, other ways to not build it, but like other ways to mess with it. Test the deck out, see what you might run into that you like or don't like. Let me know what your favorite card in the deck was. Let me know who you would run if you were running an incubation deck. Let me know all that down in the doobly-doo. Otherwise, I'm Izzy, and this is Rolling Virtual Cards. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.